The campaigns have started for many presidential candidates, but whoever who wins, Sri Lanka will only win if they implement the right economic policy. So we thought to provide some advice for whoever who would be winning the presidential election, some economic advice, because ultimately whether the country is going to win or not will not be decided on whoever who becomes the president, but whatever the policies that will be implemented will decide the destiny of the country. And of course, we sought some advice from someone wiser than us. We all wanted to become a Singapore at one point, but what happened actually was the Singapore wanted to become Sri Lanka at one point, and then now we all wanted to become Singapore. The financial architect of Singapore, Dr. Goh Keng Swee, provided 5 key advisors to the Sri Lankan government in 1980s. That is about 45 years ago. Still, those advisors are valid. And what are the 5 things he said? He said, first, check the volume of treasury bills bought by the central bank. This is what is commonly known as money printing. He said there are 5 things a president should look at. He should not go and open this, declare this is open. He only look at 5 key matrices according to the Deputy Prime Minister and the financial architect of Singapore. This is not a small country. This is one of the richest countries in the world, in Asia. He said first thing that we should look at is the president is the treasury bills bought by the central bank, because if the central bank prints more and more money, we will end up in misery. In fact, with the data we can prove it. Look at the x-axis. This is the government securities holdings by the central bank. As you can see, this is in the x-axis June 2020. The central bank government securities holdings were only about 400 billion, and now it is at almost 3 trillion, 2.7 trillion. And as you can see, by the height of crisis, it was about 2 trillion. That means this has increased by about 4 to 5 fold. And when this happens, as Goh Keng Swee very correctly said, there is no way that we can survive as a country. Because what happens when the central bank increases their government securities, that means we print more and more money. When we print more and more money without increasing the interest rate, what would happen? Definitely our exchange rate is going to depreciate. And that's what exactly happened, and this is January 2023. We were at 370. As you can see now, the central bank government securities holding is at a constant. It's at about 2.7 trillion, and with that, of course, the exchange rate is stabilizing and appreciating from 370 to about 300. So that's why Dr. Goh Keng Swee said this is 2 important matrices. What are the other 3 things that he mentioned? He said then check the central bank's reserves, and then the consumer price index, and also the cost of construction are the 3 other things that you have to check. Why is it important? Because it's all interconnected with the first one. Because if you print too much money, you first dilute your exchange rate, and then you will lose your reserves. And when these things happen, because when you depreciate your currency, of course your inflation is going to go up, and that's what happens for the consumer price index. And then this happens, it only won't happen for lentils and dry fish, it will also happen for construction material. So your cost of construction will go up and country will not grow, because when the country grows, you need more investment to expand your businesses, to build more buildings. So when the cost of construction prices goes up, your economy shrinks. And that's exactly happened for Sri Lanka. This is the exchange rate, and this is what happened for our reserves. We printed so much of money and we defended by diluting the exchange rate. When we couldn't do it, we diluted. By January 2022, our currency started depreciating because we did not have any reserves left to defend the currency. And then afterwards we did not print money, and that's how we slowly built the reserves, because there was enough dollars in the market where the central bank could purchase. What we need to keep in mind is exchange rate and reserves and interest rates work interdependently. You cannot take one out mutually exclusively because all three are interconnected. If the government borrows more and more money, that means they are not earning enough to cover their expenditure. But if they are borrowing more and more money from the market, the interest rates should go up, because when they demand more money from the market, people will ask for a higher price, and that price is called the interest rate. But when the interest rates are going up, the government cannot borrow as much as they want, so basically the investment is going to shrink down. And when the investment is shrinking down, the development slows down. But when the interest rates goes up, of course, people do not spend more. So as a result, the demand for dollars comes down. But on the other side, if the interest rates goes down, people have more and more demand for dollars. If your exports and if your tourism and our remittances won't improve comparatively to the demand, then when the interest rates goes down, there will be a pressure on the exchange rate. And that pressure can be somewhat managed if we dilute our reserves. But we cannot do it for a long time, because we have to repay our debt. Either we have to dilute our reserves, or we have to allow the rupee to depreciate. And those are the three things that we have to keep in mind, and that's what exactly someone wiser than all of us, Dr. Goh Keng Swee, mentioned to Sri Lanka, to then president in 1980s. Keep in mind the 5 things: the volume of the treasury bills bought by the central bank, the central bank's foreign exchange reserves, the exchange rate, the consumer price index, and the cost of construction material. We all know when the president is appointed, there's a plaque or his picture is being placed in all the government buildings. I think rather than that picture, this slide should be there, because then we know whether the country is moving in the right direction or the wrong direction. We can have the best campaign in town to elect whoever the president we want, but what ultimately decides the destination of the common people would be what are the policies whoever the president who is going to get elected are going to implement. We'll join you with another video next week.
If you are interested in seeing more content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Advocata on all social media platforms to never miss out on our latest content. Consider supporting Advocata by becoming an individual subscriber. Gain access to our weekday media monitoring of economic news, exclusive Advocata events, and more. To learn more, visit us at support.advocata.org.